And then there were two. We've got semi-state this Friday for high school football. He's Tom Davis of the News Sentinel. I'm Glenn Marini. We had 5 teams alive playing for a regional championship last week. Only 2 came out, and you know what? They were both hard-fought, amazing wins. One with Lures on the road, one with Snyder. A gutsy call in overtime. And we're going to start with the Snyder Panthers. Before we get talking too much about this week's game, we got to talk about last week's game.
Yeah.
Amazing effort. Fishers moved the ball in the first half, kept scoring. Snyder comes out in the second half. They were down 2 touchdowns with less than 2 minutes to go. They scored 2 and then eventually win it in overtime on a 2-point conversion.
Yeah, amazing fortitude on the part of Snyder's team, not only to overcome Fishers, but to overcome my earlier tweet about how Lures was the only team that was going to advance out of this week, the only local team. But I kept following it on Twitter because I was in Merrillville covering Carroll, and I just couldn't believe that Snyder, well, I mean, I could believe it, but it was amazing that Snyder was able to battle back. But they've shown that ability at different times this year. In the Lures game against Northside, this is a mentally tough team. And when it comes down to it, what does Snyder do well? They run the ball well. They call run blast was the play, got the conversion, win the game, and somebody tweeted real men go for 2, and they showed that they were real men.
And Coach Shipman made the comment afterwards that there was never any decision. All the kids ran up to him and said, "We want to go for 2, we want to go for 2." What does that say about the championship mentality of this Snyder football team?
Well, it shows that they're really, really tough, and they'll overcome just about anything that they need to. If you take away the passing game, they can run the ball. If they have to rely on their defense, they can do that. This is a team that's very versatile. They're very experienced. They're not going to be rattled. And at this stage of the tournament, you're going to be in hard-fought games every single week. You're going to have to beat a great team every single week. There's no 3-8 teams left. The teams that are alive still are great teams capable of winning a state championship. And Snyder showed that they are every bit as good as anybody else, and they have the mental toughness to get it done when they have to, even if they have to work overtime to do so.
Hey, they'll do it. Hey, you mentioned that you were at the Merrillville game, and that is who Snyder is playing this week. Obviously, things didn't go the way that Carroll would have liked. They were down 43-0 at one point.
50-0 at one point.
50-0.
Yeah.
Merrillville, what did they present as issues and problems for Snyder, and what does Snyder have to do to beat the Pirates?
Well, Snyder can handle what Merrillville does to a degree much better than Carroll does. Carroll is not as good a team as Snyder. Now, that's not to diminish what Carroll's done. They're a fantastic team. I think Snyder's a better team. Here's the problem with Merrillville. They are fast. They are very, very, very fast. And they spread you out. They have a quarterback that throws the ball well, but he runs the ball really well. They have wide receivers that are super fast and can get down the field. They have capable running backs. And then defensively, they gave up some runs to Carroll because Carroll runs the ball really well, which bodes well for Snyder because that's their bread and butter. But they completely took away Chris Terry in the passing game of Carroll. In fact, they did not complete a pass in the first half. And if Merrillville wanted, they probably could have kept him from completing passes for the whole night if they really, really wanted to focus on that. But that's fine because Snyder doesn't truly rely on their passing game. They're more of a run first, pass when you have to team. And so I think they will be able to run the ball against Merrillville. But defensively, Snyder, which has been great all year, and they can be great on Friday, they're going to have their hands full with the speed of Merrillville.
Yeah, and that was my next question is, if you're Kurt Tippmann, how do you try and negate that speed? Because Snyder has seen some teams with speed. You mentioned Lures. They played in the first week. It's been a while since they've seen a team with that kind of speed. But how do you negate all that speed on the Merrillville Pirate sideline?
Discipline, defensive discipline. You have to force guys back inside to the group. You can't let guys try to get outside and try to make one-on-one tackles. If you're in a one-on-one situation with a Merrillville Pirate offensive player, you're in a world of trouble. You're going to have to steer them back inside. You're going to have to hold your gaps. You're going to have to be disciplined. If you get out of position or you try to make one-on-one tackles, you're going to be in a big trouble because Merrillville can go 60 on you like nobody's business.
How do you see this one playing out? The game's going to be at Wayne, as was last week's game, as Spooler's a little bit torn up. The game kicks at 8 o'clock our time on Friday night, so a little later start than we're used to. What are you seeing as the final outcome? How would you predict this game if you were a betting man? Which you're not.
If I were a bet, I'll have to call Vegas and see what they have the Snyder Merrillville line on. But here's what helps Snyder. First of all, it's on grass, mud, muck, whatever you want to call Wayne's Field. Last week, Carroll had to defend Merrillville on field turf, and in perfect conditions. No wind, warm temperature. I mean, it was picture perfect for Merrillville and what they wanted to do. This week won't be that. So first of all, they won't be quite as fast because of the field they're on. Secondly, Snyder is faster than Carroll. Carroll's great, but Snyder's greater. And Snyder has faced C.J. Jackson and Jalen Smith and some of the best players in the state. So this isn't going to be anything completely new to Snyder. I think Snyder will be fine. They just have to be disciplined. They do have to play very, very well. No penalties, or you're not going to have no penalties. Minimize penalties. Don't turn the ball over. Special teams could come into play, which is great for Snyder. That's what they love to do. Snyder, I think, gets by on this by 3. It's going to be really, really close, but I think Snyder can survive this.
And we mentioned the special teams. Josh Spitnell's been great as a kicker, but if you don't get a finger on that pump by Tyrell Swain there with less than 2 minutes to go, that set up the second touchdown in that short period of time. We wouldn't maybe have seen the game go in overtime, and then wouldn't have seen Snyder pull it out with all their guts on that 2-point conversion. I would take Snyder by a touchdown.
Yeah, that's good.
It was funny, though, on the sidelines. I was talking to your guy Vinny and a couple of different guys. It was 21-7 in the second quarter against Fishers. I said, Snyder's in trouble. I say, when they play Indianapolis teams, the first half always belongs to the Indianapolis team. The second half always belongs to Snyder. And luckily, the overtime belonged to Snyder, or else we wouldn't be talking about a whole bunch this week.
It's interesting. You talk about how certain breaks just go Snyder's way. Good things happen to good teams. When you're a really good team, it seems like you catch breaks or you're lucky. We're seeing that with Notre Dame's season this year. Certain things just happen to go their way. Well, that happens when you're talented and you're a good team. So, I look for things to continue that way for Snyder this week. If they don't turn the ball over, if they manage Merrillville speed, if they're disciplined, no penalties, they'll be fine.